Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome back to Inside the Lines, the first 5 o'clock edition of the show. Going to switch things up a little bit as we get into the later slate. Starting tomorrow, there will be a ton of live betting opportunities for the next 2 weeks in college basketball, and Jake's going to be all over it for us. Again, live chat questions are our number one priority here. Want to hear what you guys have to say for tonight's slate. First, we're going to talk a little bit about NFL free agency, what the model has had to say about some of this stuff. We'll get to some conference championship winners and then break down the whole NBA slate as always. So let's bring in Steven and Jake here. Let's do a little rapid fire here. Let's get ourselves through some of these big NFL trades. Some things have been a little over dramatized in Vegas, Steven. I think you would agree there. But let's talk about someone we do think was really worth the trade and worth the money here. We'll start with Saquon Barkley.
Well, free agency, yeah. Saquon, even though his statistics, you could say DeAndre Swift had a better statistical season in terms of yards per carry and that kind of stuff. We all know that, what you do behind the Eagles offensive line and with those wide receivers and that offense is very different than what you can do with the Giants offense this year. So when you take Saquon with a even decent Daniel Jones in 2022, he was obviously far more productive. So we think we would say that Philly went from a 9.5 win all the way to 10.3 wins per sim. That's a huge increase for a running back. And their division percentage went from around 34% to 45%. The odds that I seeing that around plus 160 on Hard Rock that I checked before the show, that would place it around 38% implied. So Philly went from a bad value to a good value.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's talk about the other end of that free agency here with DeAndre Swift headed to the Bears. I mean, we've kind of agreed it's kind of like wasn't really their number one priority. That's kind of an interesting move.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he'll bring stability to the position because they had at different times, probably 3 or 4 running backs that, fantasy owners would be like, who's going to start? Who's going to get 15 carries this week? And they're kind of equally capable. So maybe he brings some stability there, but it wasn't necessarily a statistical upgrade to the team.
I mean, I like Roschon Johnson, and I think he could be DeAndre Swift light. I was just a little confused by that move. Why Chicago really, out of all positions, why they need a running back, especially at $8 million per year. If you pay Saquon at $12 million per year and get rid of DeAndre Swift at $8 million per year, I'd definitely go with the Saquon for just $4 million more per year. It's a great deal.
Yeah, what's $4 million? That's nothing to you, Jake.
It's penny.
That's like a weekend of college baseball over under betting for Jake.
Yeah,
exactly.
Of course. All right, let's move on to another trade people are talking about in the chat here. Kirk Cousins headed to Atlanta. Scott was talking about their division odds here. Do we agree with the shift in Vegas on this?
The shift potentially, but not in the actual value. I mean, I saw plus 105 on Bet Rivers, and we only have them at 15%, even with Kirk Cousins. We have them improving by almost 1.5 wins, which is a pretty significant amount for a guy coming off a serious injury. The problem with Atlanta's quarterbacks last year was they're just completely falling apart in the red zone, especially Desmond Ridder. So the model isn't just assuming that Drake London, Kyle Pitts are going to start producing touchdowns the way that Minnesota did with Kirk Cousins. But Cousins is certainly going to help with their turnovers, and he's going to improve them a lot, like I said. But again, for a quarterback his age and wear and tear, and we also, that the 1.3 win improvement to right around 500, we still think Tampa Bay is going to be solid. Baker going to re-sign with Tampa Bay, and New Orleans, who knows what's going to happen with them, but their defense is always pretty good, and they have some skill.
Mm-hmm. Let's head back over to the running back conversation here. Josh Jacobs headed to the Packers now.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why they didn't think. I guess they didn't think for the price and durability that Aaron Jones could keep going. But statistically, Jones was awesome when he came back healthy for the final month and a half of the season. So, and Josh Jacobs was not great, and in Vegas started running the ball well behind from Georgia. Help me out, Jake.
The
running back, Zamir White.
Yeah. Zeus White.
So, and Jacobs was obviously having a down year versus the year before where he led league in rushing. So from a pure statistical standpoint, Josh Jacobs did not improve the Packers. So doesn't mean it wasn't a good deal, just saying it didn't improve on the statistics of Aaron Jones last year. In football, especially at running back, it's all about how much you're spending on and how old the running back is and how much wear and tear is, as opposed to what they're actually going to do in the field sometimes.
What's interesting about that is Josh Jacobs got a 4-year, $48 million deal, and Aaron Jones was on a 4-year, $48 million deal. So they literally just gave him the exact same contract.
So, yeah. Must be the durability. I hear the Ravens might go after Aaron Jones since Gus Edwards is signed with the Chargers.
Oh, Gus is gone. I'm sorry.
All right, let's move on to
one that pisses me off. Anyway, sorry.
Let's move on to one more significant trade that we liked here today. Christian Wilkins headed to the Raiders. Line up with Max Crosby here should be a very, very dangerous situation now in Vegas.
Yeah, their defense got a ton better when they, switched the head coach, and I think they just got Gardner Minshew as well. So that could be a very good move. He played really well for the Colts. But yeah, we think the Wilkins addition, if you consider him basically the second or third best defensive tackle, Chris Jones being the best, and then I would put Wilkins and Madubuike right around side by side with each other. You can get plus 1,200, which is 7.7% implied odd percentage. And the Sims had right around that percentage before the addition. Now that's up to 13%, because even though the Chiefs are the best team in that division by a mile, and the Chargers should be better with Harbaugh, Vegas played well down, for Antonio Pierce to get the job. And they certainly have two really dynamic pass rushers now.
Yeah. I like it. I like it for them. All right. So those are a few impacts that we think really move the needle here. Again, some of these just don't move the needle as much as far as the model, but these are things to look out for. Maybe as more futures come out, we can take a look into those. And if there's any value, let's jump ship here to college basketball. I know we have a lot of important conference tournaments starting up today, tomorrow, Wednesday. We're going to talk about a few of them here. Let's start in the ACC. Again, Duke versus UNC kind of seems to be the situation. We actually like Duke instead of UNC. Do we want to talk about that first? Why we like Duke better?
I think we like them, and it's hard to be a team three times, right? Especially that rivalry. Anyway, sorry, Jay.
It is hard to be a team three times. We don't have value on either, but we like the value on Duke better, which is interesting considering North Carolina just beat Duke at Duke. But then you think you kind of throw that away when you look at a neutral site tournament. But also, we don't like the heavy favorites, plus 160, plus 150. You're not getting really value in a tournament style at all on any of these teams, because at some point, these teams are probably going to be down in the game. They're not going to be winning the whole time, so you can probably get them live at plus 180 at some point. So there's no really value there. We also like Virginia, and I know these teams dread having to play Virginia just because their defense is so annoying. But I think my favorite long shot here is probably Clemson. Clemson beat North Carolina at North Carolina. They should have beaten Duke at Duke, but they lost by 1. They blew that game late. They've experienced players. The model likes Pittsburgh. They're a team that could be scary. They got hot late last year, and they won the 11-11 playing game. So they're a team that has some tournament experience, but I think Clemson's my favorite long shot here.
So Jake, I know you had kind of a rough weekend, and you rolled in here a little less than 100%, but can your mathematical mind come up with a good portfolio considering we have a plus 1,200, plus 850, and a plus 1,900 with value, and they're combined with a 32% chance. So basically one of them winning, we would price it at plus 200. Do you see right off the top of your head how you would maybe sprinkle small amounts on all three?
Yeah, I would go probably half a unit on Clemson, and then like a quarter unit on Pitt, and a quarter unit on Virginia based on these prices. That's probably what I would recommend, just because you look at the 850 and you don't want to put too much there with the juice. Plus 1,200, plus 1,900, you're getting better value. So we have one of these three teams winning 33% of the time. That's probably how I would go about it if you like playing the long shots.
That's what I call hungover math.
Yes.
And luckily, fans are equally off our game, so we don't know if you're right or not. All of us are just sort of like.
It's Monday. We're just trying to get through. All right, let's move on here to another conference. Where do you want to go? Yeah, let's go to the Atlantic 10 here. Nothing too exciting that we have as far as value. We have some value on the long shot, though.
Yeah, St. Joseph's I think the model likes really good offensive teams. We like Alabama and we like Kentucky. And St. Joseph's is a team that almost beat Kentucky earlier in the season. They beat Villanova earlier in the season and the Philadelphia rivalry. Just a high-powered offensive team who it's not great at defense, which is why they're in the ninth seed, but plus 2,500, there's a little value there. I don't really mind the value at VCU at plus 1,000. This is a conference where I could see any of the top 9 seeds winning. It wouldn't really shock me. Dayton is good, but I don't think they're plus 150 good. I mean,
so what's helping St. Joseph's here is in the bracket, Dayton is on the other side. So Dayton, even though they're the 3rd seed, is the betting favorite by kind of a lot. So, so Richmond's the 1 seed, but is not considered nearly as good as the 3 seed. So that's why we have value on St. Joseph's. In addition to liking them, they're on the easier side of the bracket, despite being in the 1 seed side.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to look at the brackets when you look at who you want to bet on. But I mean, I think VCU is probably where I would go if I was going with a long shot here, just because I think they're a really good defensive team, and they're kind of a team like UVA where you don't want to play them in this tournament.
All right, that's a lot of time on a conference that doesn't get a lot of hype. Let's move on to the Big 12 here. A lot more action going on. Houston, obviously the overwhelming favorite here. Sims give them a 42% chance to win, but the odds minus 135 just doesn't really seem worth the squeeze on the juice there. But BYU Cougars, that could be a great long shot spot.
Yeah, I mean, we're not saying we don't like Houston. We love Houston, but minus 135 is just not worth the value there.
No.
That implies that they're winning 57.4% of the time, and it's the Big 12. It's not they're not an American anymore, so it's just not good value. BYU,
that crushing of Kansas really made their price soar.
Yeah, exactly. And then Hunter Dickinson got hurt, which hurts Kansas. I know he left that game early, so you don't know his status. So that game alone just moved the needle a lot in both directions. And
there's Houston. You want to win the NCAA tournament. You want to lose this. You can't. Yeah, it's hard to win the conference tournament. You have a great regular season ending win. You want to lose in the semis of this, and then
exactly. You don't want to lose early. You don't. I mean, they're not going to try to lose, but they're not. Yeah. I don't think you risk. They already lost one of their players from their 8-man rotation, so they're now down to like a 7-man rotation. So I mean, I don't think that you go all out, because if you can make it to the semis, you're pretty much locking a 1 seed. I think BYU, they're a veteran team, high-powered team. They played Houston really close early in the season, and I think that's part of the reason why we like BYU so much. Is they're one of the few teams that played Houston really close. I know Iowa State beat Houston, but BYU played them close. So I don't mind BYU. I can definitely see why the model likes them.
All right. I see Big Cheesy starting to talk about the NBA in the chat here. We got one more conference to get through before we get there. Do we want to talk about Conference USA here in Liberty?
Yeah. So I don't love this. I'm not going to lie. Liberty came from the A-Sun, and sometimes we have a hard time adjusting teams to new conferences just because the metrics are so different. And we really like Liberty because we've liked them the last couple of years. I mean, I don't mind them as an underdog, but I don't love them at plus 450 as an underdog. But it's also interesting that Sam Houston is plus 500 as the 1 seed. That's what really stands out here. I'm not sure.
That's what's going on here. That's really what's going on here. It's definitely the fact that the 4 seed, even by the odds makers, is better than the 1 seed. So that's why we have this skew. That's the easier side of the bracket.
I mean, I don't mind if you want to play something in this tournament. I don't mind waiting till the semis, and then you could get some value. But I don't love the value right now.
All right, not pressed about Conference USA here. Good to know. We do like. Yeah, fair enough. We can't love everything, guys. All right, let's
Exactly.
move on to the NBA here. Some money we can make tonight. This is really my first time, not Steven's, but my first time really looking heavily at the slate tonight. So I have a lot of questions myself. We'll start with Charlotte headed to Detroit. Ugly game, however. These are players I at least seem to find myself betting on pretty consistently. So interesting for us here. Let's see. We got Jalen Duren, double-double, lock. Wonder what that value is right now.
I should look that up. If it's anything less than minus 150, you would want to get on it.
Yeah, you need to tell people to stop betting on it, so we get the value.
Yeah, guys, don't do it. I regret saying anything.
The guy I'm looking at here is Micic. I think that's how you say it. Micic. Over 29.5 points and assists at even money. Obviously he didn't play much to start the season, but it's recently Trey Mann is probably out again. And so he's gone over 2 of his last 3 as pretty much the only point guard on the team, kind of guaranteed for over 30 minutes. He's been scoring a lot. I like the fact that he's been playing a lot despite some pretty bad stats. He's 2 for his last 14 from 3. And he has a 1-to-4 steal to turnover ratio. You want 4-to-1, not 1-to-4. So that means he's not really playing well, and they're still playing him enough minutes and giving enough shots. And the ball's in his hand enough for him to go over the number recently. And Detroit's at home is allowing 120 a game, and their last 6 visiting teams have scored at least 110, which is good 10 points more than Charlotte's been scoring. So hopefully this is a higher scoring game than normal for Charlotte as well.
Mm-hmm. D. Johnson here asking about Brandon Miller over 2.5 threes. Sensitive subject for me. He went 2 for 10. I bet on him on Saturday.
But that's the key word. Massive projection for him today. But yeah, it was the 2 for 10, and he was wide open. I saw in his last at least 2 of them. I think he's due. He was shooting really well with 2 4 for 8s in a row, and he's been off his last 2 games. And Detroit, at home, they defend the 3, same as on the road, not particularly well. One of the worst teams, 38% allowed.
All right. Well, let's move on from that ugly game then. We'll go to Phoenix headed to Cleveland. A lot of steam on Phoenix. Basically a full healthy roster here. We don't have Jared Allen for Cleveland, correct?
No, he's the only one we have for Cleveland. I think Garland might be playing. Derek can clarify. He's in the middle of out.
Here it is. Yeah. Derek said Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, and Dean Wade all out.
Yeah, that's why the line went from Cleveland actually opened as in some books as a slight favorite, and it's steamed by a full 7 points. And so the pick here, you probably don't want to avoid the main markets. I am going with Kevin Durant. Last time you checked, you could get 35.5 PRA. You got to pay a little bit of a steep price, but it was better than 37.5 at minus 105, or that I saw in most spots. So the model is almost at 39. Very strong season splits at 35.5. With 40 averages, and even though he's probable, Devin Booker is still technically listed as a game time decision. Maybe with Cleveland being down, maybe they'll give him some rest. I also like that even though Eric Gordon and Josh Okogie are not, starters, they are perimeter depth pieces that aren't available tonight. So maybe that puts more on the big 3 to play, bigger minutes than they might have otherwise if they're up.
What about Grayson Allen here? His point line set at
I don't know if my personal bias towards Grayson Allen has had me hard code somewhere that we always underproject get Grayson Allen, but we never have overvalue on Grayson Allen. I don't think. We have same value at 11.3 points versus the line 11.5. We just almost never like any of his overs.
Interesting. Don't take it personally, Big Cheesy. It seems to be a Steven problem, not you. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, guys who trip other players like that for Kowski, we're not big on.
I see that there's a deeper rooted issue here. Okay, let's
head
over.
A long way with my hatred of Duke basketball and a lot of other factors.
All right, let's move on to Dallas headed to Chicago here. We're taking some plus money action on Kyrie Irving, someone we don't really seem to touch too much.
Yeah, I influenced. Well, the model had a 4.8 assist projection. I saw plus 125 this morning on over 4.5 assists. Now it's the best price I saw was plus 110. I think it's a buy low opportunity. He had a streak of 8 unders in a row. that was broken his last game. Despite that streak, his overall metrics are still, the over trend is still strong for this season, even on the road. And then Derek dug this up, is that during Ramadan, this is the first day of Ramadan, his assists average have gone up, I believe, 3 straight seasons versus non-Ramadan. So that's pretty scientific.
That is scientific. That is what they call that. I see some questions in the chat about this game. Let me find Kobe White. Any value here on him anywhere?
Not from his main PRA lines. Maybe a 3-point make. 2.5 made threes, but minus 169 on the consensus is what I have. But we have a lot of line value. We have a 3.25 projection.
Could be part of a little 2-leg parlay. Get rid of some of that priciness. Let's take a look at.
We only have 9.5 rebounds and assists for DeRozan. Has he been playing? He had a couple big games. He's had 3 big games in a row. So maybe it's a sell high.
Yeah, maybe it's a fade spot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I think those are all the questions on this game. We'll head over to Golden State at San Antonio. Nothing we specifically have any value on. A lot of injuries going on here, right?
Yeah. Well, Curry's out. Wembanyama should be back. So the San Antonio just beat the crap out of Golden State at Golden State without the 2 stars playing. The one player for Golden State who showed up was Kuminga. So, and you could still get 20.5 points at not too much of a price. I think 21.5 is most books. So the model's got 22. I am fading his season trends because, his minutes at the very times of the season were lower. But the last 5 games where he had at least 27 minutes, the over is 4-1. Right now, without Curry, he's almost their most consistent offensive player. He's had a number of 20-plus games recently, 21, 25, 24. And his lows, even though they're technically under 20.5, 19 and 20 is still pretty good. 19 in his unders were scraping right there. So I'm just backing his recent performance as the one guy who seems to have success against San Antonio.
Mm-hmm. Scott talking about his Wemby train. Scott was riding that 4.5 blocks and steals for quite some time, but it seems that Vegas has caught on. See Big Cheesy's on Chris Paul.
We do have value on that number. We have almost 25 projected for Chris Paul. Looks like he's warming up a little bit from 3-point range.
Mm-hmm. Are his numbers a lot better without Steph, I assume?
I mean, he played like 5 or 6 more minutes. His assist numbers are up. So yeah, it looks like he is. He's not taking a lot of shots.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right, let's move on to Toronto headed to Denver here. I saw some questions about Aaron Gordon in the chat. I believe his rebound line was somewhere around 6.5.
We are projecting a lot of rebounds. So the threat in this game is that it's a blowout, and Denver sits a lot of players. I almost went with a lot of Gordon overs because PRA we has over half a made 3. So I think it's a good bet. I just would be nervous that it's a blowout. Toronto not only is without, they're out with a lot of guys, even some of the backups like Boucher and stuff who are quality backups aren't playing. So, I mean, Quickly's out, it looks like, so this could get ugly really fast.
How does Kelly Olynyk look?
I mean, if the line's still 27.5, it's out of necessity. He's going to have a huge night. He might be a really good block and steal player. I'm a little nervous about my Jamal Murray 3 made, not because, again, what if he doesn't play enough minutes? But I'm hoping I get this early, this first quarter. He's a pretty streaky player. He's just had a huge game of 6. And tends to get, good, 3+ makes in multiple games in a row. You see these nice little streaks. So you don't see a lot of one big game not. So he's really seeing it. Toronto's had some really bad 3-point defense recently as their injuries. They've allowed 4 of the last opponents, 5 opponents scored 40%. These are the team that did allow Grayson Allen to make 8 and Trey Murphy to make 10. So
right.
the number one 3-point shooter on the opposing team has gone off on this Toronto team.
Like that, our favorite type of stat. A few questions about this game. We'll start with RJ Barrett. His PRA 33.5.
Yeah, we have a massive game. Again, not of necessity. Maybe he'll get every shot he always dreamed of getting.
Fair. And then Porter Jr. here, his point line at 17.
We have 17.4. Again, it's all about minutes. But I think that Denver, there might be people who watch Denver a lot closer than I do in the regular season. But hopefully Michael Porter is still in that phase where when they're up, they like to let him feast and pad his stats. He may be beyond that. They might be more about protecting his back injuries. But, maybe he'll be a player who actually gets to stay in a little bit, even if they're up.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to the last game of the night. This should be interesting. Boston headed to Portland because Boston is essentially sitting everyone from my knowledge.
Yeah, this is not accurate. I think Holiday's been ruled out, and a lot of players. The entire stuff. Porzingis is out, and everybody else who starts this is game time decisions. So and then even on the Portland side, there are some unknowns. I don't know if the lines were up an hour and a half ago, and then they were taken down like an hour ago. At the time, I had an Anthony Simons over three. Actually, this should be under 3.5 turnovers.
I was gonna say that's a lot.
But I don't. Yeah, because he's been a turnover machine recently, right? You see a lot of overs recently because he's been the only person who can dribble on the team. Scoot Henderson was out. Brogdon's been out for a while. Now, Scoot came back the last game. He still had 5 turnovers, so it's not like, he's still a shaky bet. But even with this blitz recently, the under is still strong, 13-8 at home. And then I also like that Ayton has had a huge 30-point game the other night. That maybe him establishing himself as a high scoring, reliable big man, at least for offensively, will result in Portland kind of walking up a little bit more, giving him time to settle in the post and feeding him. You see Ayton with these 26, 22, 22, 18, 27, having big games and less. And then Simon's playing more of a traditional shooting guard and not necessarily looking to be a ball distributor.
It looks like Derek said about an hour ago, Brown and Tatum are playing. Or maybe that was... Well, all right. So considering what we have right now, we have them in and everything. Boston, their team total set at 115. Is there any type of value there?
We have 115.5. So I think this could be a blowout as well. Not one I want to go out with. And the problem is Portland can really, they scored a lot against Toronto, but they can struggle offensively especially when they're not at full strength. So I'd be worried about Portland not scoring enough early. And if Boston is up big, then the game just being a low scoring blowout.
Nothing more exciting than a low scoring blowout to wrap up the NBA slate. All right, let's take one more question here. D Vessel, over 10.5 rebounds and assists.
We're only projecting 8.5, but I think that doesn't reflect his last few games with Wemby out. So with Wemby back in, the question is, does he go back to where he was? Versus
is Wemby back in?
14, 11, 14, 12, 12, 14. So, yeah, he's on a nice run. I definitely wouldn't fade it. So he's been playing 37 minutes a game for the last 2 weeks, and we're projecting 35. So, we're probably under projecting him. I don't hate that 10.5 despite our projection.
All right. Good to know there. That's all we can do is answer the questions. All right. I think that is all I see. Not a crazy NBA slate by any means today. We'll have a lot more action tomorrow. I'll pull up the recap screen. Again, a lot of conference games we'll have during the show tomorrow. We'll definitely be looking at those live, hopefully, and getting some action on those and helping you guys out with the live betting aspect. Appreciate everyone who remembered the 5 o'clock time slate. Tell your friends, tell your sports betting friends, live bettors, all of them about the show. We'll be here to answer everyone's questions. So good luck with your bets tonight. We'll see you guys tomorrow.